Women Bank podcast, an extension of Pitch Pact Empowerment for Black women to present, learn, and grow. My name is Yolanda Brunson Sarabo.
And I'm Melvina Manuel.
Today, we're excited to speak about this podcast, Black Women Bank, an extension of empowerment for Black women to present, learn, and grow. Black Women Bank is a platform created to engage in meaningful conversations about everyday financial matters. We want Black Women Bank to empower you to take charge of your financial freedom and eliminate financial trauma. Whether you have a 9-to-5, a small business owner, or stay-at-home caregiver, you will be able to relate.
And just an important disclaimer before we continue any further. We are not financial fiduciaries. We're just ordinary women like our audience, seeking to become more financially independent and hopefully lead us to the road of creating generational wealth. We will be offering tips and suggestions, but we are not giving you expert advice. So please take that in mind when you're making your own decisions. So there's going to be talking about Recession Hacks 101. One of the things that impacts us the most are our grocery bills, right? So we thought it would be cool to start with that. And who hasn't been to the supermarket lately, grocery store, online shopping, however you get your meals, and hasn't noticed a stark rise in just the basic necessities. What's interesting is that I've had a few people tell me that they've noticed this, at some point during the course of the pandemic, which I think everyone could agree at that point, you just needed to get your hands on something, not necessarily focused on the price, but more of the necessity of having it out of fear that it would disappear. At least for me, used to be able to walk into a store, for example, let's say if it's $50 and get like multiple bags of things. And now that $50 will give you maybe a bag if you're lucky. And if you're looking for fresh produce, it seems like it's costing more to eat healthier, right? Like they're almost encouraging you to eat bad as opposed to try to eat healthy. You see a lot of fast food places offering some sort of deals, but you don't see those deals correlate to when you're doing supermarket shopping. So Yolanda and I thought that this was worthwhile, try to sort of dig deep to see, kind of some things that we're doing that may help, others sort of along that path. So Yolanda, are there some special things that you're doing when you're going out looking for your own groceries or shopping in general?
There are. I just wanted to kind of go on the end of what you just spoke about. I remember, and I know this is going back some years ago, not even a couple, when I could get gas, I could put $5, okay, in a tank. And even though we didn't use the car every day, mostly on the weekends, but that would be enough to, okay, I don't think that was a full tank, but it was enough where you could put putting $5 today for gas is a joke. Like, okay, where you trying to go? To the block around the corner? So that just tells you how crazy things have gotten, whether this so-called impending recession, based on how things are now, we're in a recession. It's no ways around that, So in regards to my shopping experience, just like I'm sure a lot of people, you just kind of get what you need at the time. And you do a whole lot of comparison shopping. One perfect example is butter for me. So I know around the time of last year with the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, that's the time when you may do a little more baking or making a little more extra macaroni and cheese, things that you will need that butter. And it was no way one of the major shopping stores that I was paying, which their prices had then gone up, there was no way I was paying $5 for 4 cubes of butter. The devil is a liar. Okay. So it was crazy. Like it was like probably 2 bars left in the house, and me figuring, okay, who has a sale? Like all these other stores, these circulars, like who else where the price is like less, where I can drive a little further if need be, if the price is hitting. And the only thing for me that I found was a BJ's. And I forget what type of store you would call that, but you have to like rethink for those who have memberships at a BJ's, a Costco's, or well, Trader Joe's isn't I don't think a membership thing, but like those type of stores where they sell like family packs and all of that, to like reestablish, because usually I wouldn't really shop in a BJ's. Like we'll get the gas there. It's like certain things that I would get there, but it's not like for me to be in there every week. But then it was like, okay, let me get my testy calculator out to like calculate now. If you giving me 4 packs here, and this is $14, like you really have to like really think, okay, the price is going to be high anyway in terms of, in this case, butter, but okay, let me go where it makes sense, even though you feel like you are paying a good amount of money for it, but it makes sense because you're actually getting a bang for your dollar. So that's kind of the new way for me as to, oh, if Walmart down got it, then let me see what Aldi's got over here. Oh, Aldi's want to act stupid too, because their prices have risen too, for those who know Aldi.
Wow.
Oh, let me go over here to Target, because they got a food section. Oh, this applesauce, oh, this is $1 less than a ShopRite and a so-and-so. Girl, bye. You know what I'm saying? So it's just doing a little extra work. You know, like one of the things that I do like on Fridays, every Friday, is to see, in this example, a ShopRite, because that's when they make a big secret to see what the sale is going to be the following week. And just to surf. Oh, they got Vice on sale this week. Oh, but they had Vice on sale last week. Let's comparison shop, because I still have an extra day to get it if it's cheaper this week.
Right.
It's just a whole different way of shopping, and it's very irritating. However, if you're trying to save money, you really have to rethink doing it that way. So what have you experienced?
I totally agree. Before I jump into that, I forgot, you mentioned that we're in a recession, and a lot of people may hear this buzzword, but are not exactly sure what it is. And even though you mentioned it, they're not actually saying it. So that kind of confuses me as well. But, the textbook sort of definition of a recession is a significant decline in economic activity that usually lasts for a few months, as it pertains to income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail outlet sales. So you've also been hearing, if people are paying attention, the Federal Reserve talk about having to raise interest rates to sort of cool inflation, bring the numbers down. And the reason why you keep hearing that, they keep doing it, is because consumers are still spending, right? So it's funny because we're talking about this as it's difficult for us to try to keep up with these inflated prices, but we're still spending, so it's a catch-22. Why are we still spending? And then the other part of it is, so that we don't paint it, like this is anyone's particular fault, is that we did just come out of an unprecedented pandemic, right? One that the world hasn't seen since, I don't know, what was it, the Spanish flu? I don't know. Nobody was around for that. Well, there have been some people that were around, but an influx of so much money, that came in the form of those, what do they call it? Those checks that they were giving people, kind of put a lot of stimulus checks. They kind of infused the economy with so much cash. And I guess these are kind of like the backlash of that kind of thing. But again, this is unprecedented territory for everybody. So, when the Federal Reserve tries to come in and sort of cools down that spending, this is why, in case some people are wondering, why do they keep having to do this, having to do that? This is kind of like that checks and balances kind of thing. I think the reason why they're hesitant to put that R and call it recession is also that you can't have job growth normally in a recession, which is weird because when you see the jobs report, it looks like we're doing well, right? And there's still too much consumer spending. But if you look a little bit closer, and again, this is where the literacy part comes in, guys, and I get it, it's not particularly an interesting topic, but for me, what I've learned, and what we hope to, encourage you to learn is that we got to dig deep to learn about what's happening with our money, right? And understand it. This is the whole literacy talk. So, while it may seem that jobs are growing, people have jobs and you have money to pay these high prices, or you're not stopping from buying things, there have been massive layoffs, right? Particularly in certain industries like tech industries. I think, was it Amazon? I don't know the numbers exactly, but let's say they laid off in the double digits a couple of months ago. Then they recently laid off again. Microsoft laid off a ton of folks on one hand, but on the other hand, spent a lot of money to get into this whole AI business. So there have been layoffs. And then most recently, what does it mean when you have to bail out banks, right? Why are we bailing out banks? What's going on? So these are little red flags that I think we should be paying attention to, whether they impact you directly. Maybe your money wasn't impacted, or was in one of those banks that failed, but these are signs that things are not exactly 100%. What causes the inflation that you're seeing in the supermarkets and elsewhere? It could be a myriad of things. Again, we're coming out of a recession. It's also the demand outweighing the supply in a lot of regards. I think with the eggs, and I haven't heard this recently, but at the onset, say for example, and I know we've all heard this because I used to love to eat oranges all the time and kind of pull back a little bit. But when you have strong storms, let's say in the South, or let's say Florida, you would hear that's going to impact your price of oranges. You're going to see oranges go up. You're going to see orange juice go up. So these things have happened. I think right now what we're seeing is just across the board, many things are being impacted by that. So it could be natural causes, such as a storm. It could be, in the case of eggs, very early on, they were talking about bird flu, right? So now if you have your birds getting sick, obviously that's going to impact the production of eggs, right? I'm not 100% sure that's still the case. It may be that even though, or if the bird flu situation sort of resolved itself, you're still going to have that residual impact until things can stabilize in that market. And then a lot of it can also be quality control, right? Let's say somebody goes in and discovers, hey, this particular manufacturer is not up to code, halt it, don't manufacture anything anymore. I think that's a little bit that might have happened with the baby formula situation, right? Also coupled with the fact of the pandemic, also coupled with the fact of supply chain. So all of these things kind of work together, unfortunately, or not together, to give us the end result of these high prices. So again, sometimes it makes sense to kind of know the backstory as to how we got here and to understand how to move in a certain direction. So very early on, as I tuned into the news months ago, when I heard that bird flu thing, or if I'm watching the weather, I'm a lover of weather, and I hear, hey, this is particularly strong storm season, you almost have to position yourself and figure out, if this particular staple is something that I really, really need, it might be impacted by high prices. How do I move in that? Do I cut it out completely? Do I start looking for alternative services? Whatever it is. But it's kind of trying to be informed as to what's going on in the world, in the country, and how that's going to impact you altogether. Going back to some things that I do. I definitely didn't do again in the pandemic. I think because my immediate urgency was just to get the stuff that I needed for my family, and unfortunately, it's kind of like price was almost out the window because my whole thing was I never wanted to run out of food because I had heard some people say, things are bare, they couldn't get this. So I had somewhat of an influx. Coming out of the pandemic, I kind of wanted to change that spending habit, but it kind of took me a while. I think what forced me was what you mentioned, Yolanda, was these prices, right? There's certain things that I know that I need because I like to bake. But I've been lucky enough so far to still sort of, if it's sort of going in with the frame of mind, if it's not on sale, then I'm not going to get it. And it has kind of changed my spending habits overall. Like, I'm used to buying certain juices for the household. If I'm noticing that those juices aren't being consumed as quickly, guess what? I don't know. I no longer need to buy that. So I'm not, you know. So when I go to the market, I am a little bit more strategic in what I'm doing. And I am very strategic in where I get certain things from. So as you said, Yolanda, whether it's Target, I've always been a member of some kind of wholesale club because of the kids. I rejoined again during the pandemic, and I do find the prices in a food club like say a BJ's or Costco's, or I think it's Sam's Club, that's out of the city, is that because you're buying in bulk, things are going to be a bit more expensive. I would have to say, at least in terms of BJ's, because I haven't been to the other wholesale clubs, the prices haven't changed all that much is what I expected. In other words, say, for example, bacon, which was one of the first things to skyrocket. And guess what? I'm not paying $10 for bacon. Don't love it that much. Don't need it, whatever the case is. I noticed with the prices there, if you get like a 3-pack, it's less than $20. So right there, that tells you, hey, what's going on? How come they haven't been impacted? If you're trying to stretch your penny, and your wallet, you have to think unconventionally as well. And there are savings out there. I'm not as disciplined as I should when it comes to coupons. That's something that I've really always been trying to work on. My spouse is better at that than me, but don't underestimate a coupon. And some of these wholesale clubs take the coupons as well. Don't underestimate looking at that circular. Yolanda, as you mentioned, if you're going to a ShopRite or a Key Food or something like that, and they have something on sale, this week, you might want to go ahead and get it while it's on sale. So I think it's using multiple tips to figure out what's best for you. But I think gone are the days of just saying, I'm going to go to my local, I don't know, even know if Pathmark is still around. I think they came back or whatever your local store is, and that's where I'm going to go. Because that may hurt you, right?
I agree.
You really have to be more aware of things in that nature, I think.
I just wanted to add 2 points what you mentioned before. When we look at in that example of baby food, if you've noticed, they haven't really said if that was corrected or not. Like, I was in a store the other day, and I've noticed like some of these brands that I've never even heard of. Like you're not seeing like your typical Infamil or Gerber. I think it was 2 or 3 where you feel like it was like a monopoly in terms of those particular brands. Now you're seeing these other brands. Who knows? Maybe now there's room for other companies to get into business, but it's brand loyalty. Because if I've never heard of Hookie Duke or whatever before, is that what you want your baby to be having? Like, now I got to do a little extra research. Who are these people? What is this company? Or is this like a downgrade of an Infamil or something? But the other thing to take into account is, as the prices go up, we all know, or at least some of us do, that they do not come back down. So if you were paying $2.99 for back to butter, if you were paying $2.99 for butter, and now it's at $5, even if the economy begins to boost better and everybody, is back to normal, whatever that is, it was, it's still gonna be $5. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing that is so perplexing to me, that why can't the price go back down? Okay, but that's not how it works. And then on top of it too, the quality of a lot of things has like diminished. like you're paying more for it, but maybe they've shortened the amount of contents in whatever it is you're buying, or maybe the quality, because for the manufacturer, they have to read like this affects everybody. So it's not just the customer, even though the customer does bear a lot of, the consequences to all of these changes, because we're the ones that have to buy the stuff. However, as a business owner, for those entrepreneurs out there, like if you have a makeup line and you're working with a distributor, and maybe your distributor gave you a certain set price for these metallic eyelashes or what have you, and now 2 years later the prices have gone up. Okay, oh well, maybe, okay, well, I'll pay this price now, but you're going to give me that other price that I had before. No, this is a new day and this is the new price. And not only that, the price may go up yet again. So
Right.
this is like where you have to stir your business. Okay, well, do you need these metallic eyelashes? Maybe you need to like rethink that and see what else they have available for you to put into your brand or what have you. So it's really thinking outside of the box, and also realize that these are the prices, and understanding quality does make a difference, because the longer something lasts, the longer you probably don't have to rebuy it anytime soon, so
Exactly.
exactly.
Very true.
So
So
Melvin, are you forced to like pay attention to any and how you buy? I know you brought some good points before, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, yes. I think you have to be more conscious. And you mentioned quality, and that's interesting because I'm not looking for baby formula right now, but I just assumed things were back to normal with that. But it brings up a good point I was thinking about in terms of butter. So, and of course, if I have to weigh the odds, obviously baby formula is more important than butter, probably. But I mean, obviously I'll look for certain names to see if they're on sale. And if they're not on sale, then I automatically go to, okay, so what's this brand? ShopRite, whatever the case is. Now, I don't eat as many sweets as I used to, and often when I bake, I don't hear complaints that, oh, I could taste that this butter doesn't taste like brand so and so. So I think there is some leeway in terms of brand quality that I use. Now, obviously, if we're talking about, for example, cereals, if I'm going to go for Cheerios, I'm not going to go for brand X Cheerios. Just, it may taste the same, but I can't, And I think growing up, I might have seen some of that, so it's like kind of seared in my brain, like, nah, I can't. I'm just not going to have it. Let's just start there. Not
But
some
let
things
me,
I just can't do brand X.
yeah,
I
it's
can't.
it's funny that you said that. I have to jump in on that. It is true, like sometimes when you are used to certain brands, and you are kind of curious, and
Right.
I've kind of dipped a little bit into that no name brand Cheerio,
I
and the taste
Is it the same? I don't know. Could
the
be.
taste is similar to this one
Okay.
store. I won't say the name of the store. And it's like,
Okay.
okay, but however, another thing, if you consider going another route, is to see the brands side by side. And that's something that I
Mhm.
do pay attention. Okay, are you going to have that iron in there? Are you going to have that niacin in there, or the folic acid? Like, there's certain things we know in cereals
You need.
where you need, especially for kids, that if you're giving it for the children to grow their bones or whatever the thing that they're doing.
Mhm.
So sometimes some of those brands don't have certain things that they are supposed to have, or maybe they have
Mhm.
a little bit more. It really depends. Or sometimes the terminology is different. And
Yeah.
I say all that. A lot of people are not going to put in the effort. they're probably just going to look at the price. We're in a recession. This is $1.99 versus $5 for some cereal. I'm gonna get this $1.99. And the aftertaste that you taste after that, go drink some water and wash that down. Okay. Okay, so it depends. You also got to say, who is your shopper out there? Because we all kind of vote a little differently. But
Yeah.
I have tried the no-name brand from this one store, and it wasn't bad. But then part of you feel like, let me just go back to my regular Cheerios when it's on sale specifically. Okay. So,
and you know, speaking of, you know, brands and no name or the stigma that's usually attached to it, and I guess being more open now, right? When you're looking for discounts, it can work two ways, right? Because I think the one time and last time I spent over $4 for eggs, again, it was not having that discipline to stop and ask around and look around, was that I paid for something. Or at least I thought I was picking up to pay for something because it was a particular store brand eggs. When it rang up, it was 6 something. So I said, oh no, which ones were for something? So they were another brand, a known brand. So I got the known brand, but in my head, I'm like, well, wait a minute. I guess when I read the sign, I automatically thought, if this is the store brand, how could the store brand possibly be more than this well-known brand? So it goes back to pay attention to those circulars and those sales, because it just so happened, I guess that week, this well-known brand of eggs was on sale, but the generic brand, which was the store, wasn't.
right.
But it still caused me to think further, like, is this supposed to be the generic brand regular price? Are you kidding me? It was almost $7, Yolanda. You know,
I
and
can believe it.
That was crazy. So you have that sometimes, even when you're talking about brands, that sometimes a generic store brand, whatever chain it is, may actually be more than that well-known brand if it's on sale that particular week. And I find, and this is kind of getting to a whole other topic, so I don't want to delve too deep, but that could definitely impact, you'll see that impact more depending on where you live, right? Whether it's rural, whether it's urban, whether it's in that urban environment, whether you're in a particular neighborhood that's more diverse, where the income levels may be lower, which it should work the opposite, but it doesn't, unfortunately. So sometimes, depending on where you live, is going outside of your normal area, right, may also be needed. And then I know that comes also, you know, with the average person, that may come with even more difficulties, and you have to sort of weigh the odds, but just to be aware that that is out there. You may have to go out of your neighborhood to see cheaper prices depending on where you live. Just a quick note about going back to brand names. Now, there have been multiple examples over the years, both pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and certainly now, that we have seen where a brand name, a well-known brand name, beloved brand name, now is impacted because of quality issues, right? You have recalls. It's also impacted because of supply and demand, or just trying to get enough product produced for that demand. And all of that can also impact prices, right? Because if brand A, say for example, the baby formula. Now I don't know, again, because I don't have a child or a young child or a toddler. If out of all those supply chain issues, and because that resulted from practices that weren't deemed healthy when they were manufacturing the formula, if all of those supply chain issues now caused whatever formula that was left to skyrocket in price, right? Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and say, depending on where you were looking, people always take advantage, right? So if you were trying to get it from your traditional store, then maybe you might not have seen the rise in prices. But if you were just under the operation where I got to get it no matter what, you most definitely was seeing a rise in prices. What happens to the folks that can't pay that rise in prices, but still has to, you know, feed their child? What do you do with those hoarders that take everything that's left, and now you're left with nothing? So it's unfortunate. Sometimes these things are driven by us, meaning that we'll drive up the cost, especially if we know that there isn't a lot out there. But sometimes it's driven by, like I just said, you know, we don't have enough on the shelf, so whatever we produce is going to be higher kind of thing. And we don't have enough on the shelf because we weren't manufacturing it correctly. Now, in this day and age, why are we not manufacturing stuff correctly? That's oversight, and that's a whole totally different conversation, right? But all of this impacts the prices that we ultimately see. So again, that whole brand thing and the stigma, I think it's safe to say we definitely think outside of the box with that, because a name doesn't always mean it's the best anymore, unfortunately. You know,
That is true.
You really have to do your homework and stay alert when it comes to things like that. Yeah, so that's definitely something that I've kind of looped in now more often than I used to, in terms of looking for where to get those prices. And just going back to, who we're all impacted, right? Obviously by high prices, but I think those that are being severely impacted are, our children and our elderly, right? Because our children, as you outlined, Yolanda, if you have a child and the child needs formula, what are you going to do, right? It's not always not an option. And if you have a child like my kids, they both took, I forgot what it's called now, that hypoallergenic type formula, which is already expensive. What do you do if they can't use the regular type of formula? And then if you're an elderly person on a fixed income or budget, what do you do now? Do you cut food out of your diet? Do you not get your medication? And I know medication is a whole totally different topic too, but it's a cost, right? And it's a cost that hasn't been immune to the recession, definitely is kind of like in its own lane. I feel like a drug manufacturer can do whatever they want. If you recall, a couple of years ago, and this was on my radar because I have family members that have food allergies, there was that whole EpiPen issue where the manufacturers of the EpiPen drove it up something astronomical. I can't remember the price. And it's like, are you kidding me right now? And I don't know what they did to mitigate it, because again, I remember asking my children's doctors, and they were like, this and this will work. They're not at the level where they need the EpiPen, but I can give you the prescription, kind of thing. But luckily they could take stuff over the counter to sort of halt that kind of thing. But I think those prices came down eventually. But in that moment, what are you telling people? Like, here's something that could save your life, pay it or else. And now we're hearing it again, I think, with multiple types of drugs, that the prices are too high, because we've allowed these markets, these independent pharmaceutical companies, or like I like to say, professional drug dealers, to charge whatever they want to charge, right? With no checks and balances, and hope that if you're lucky enough to have some kind of health insurance, that they'll cover some costs. But just the other day when I was in a pharmacy, I heard a senior complain. I don't know what it was, but I'm assuming it's some kind of maintenance medication that he needed. I think the quote was like, the copay was like $100 and something to $200. And he literally said to the pharmacy worker, you guys just charge whatever you want every month. So that led me to believe that it wasn't that price last month. And it's not something that he didn't walk away. So it's not like he could say, oh, I don't need this. He needed it. And I'm saying to myself, I'm looking at him, I don't know his economic status, but how do you just raise something 100%? So
as they're doing. It's funny. I was back to the grocery. I was in the store the other day, and the lady in front of me, she only had like a small amount of things in her wagon. And the lady told her $100 and something for that little bit. And she turned, I'm looking, because again, you don't want to be in anybody's business, even though I'm right behind her.
Right.
And she looked, and I just shook my head. Like, we don't even have to have a conversation. I just shook my head. And then we kind of had a conversation. She said she tries her best not to get crazy, just as we're saying, you're trying to stay within your limits of your grocery bill. However, it makes you wonder. Like, I feel like a lot of this is greed. There's other things, other components on there, right? Because Bob and Mary is raising their prices. So now Phyllis and John feels they have to raise it too. When you think of it, they probably don't really have to, but sometimes I think people follow suit. This is what everybody else is doing, so let me get up on it too. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's fair and safe to say that it really has been a hassle, and it has thrown us all into the sea of uncertainties and getting through this unusual storm. What adjustments, if any, have you made? Which I think we kind of discussed that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, definitely not going to one place anymore to get grocery items. Taking a hard look at what I was spending money on. Thankfully I'm not going to say the pandemic is over, like everybody says, but we're at a better place than we were 3 years ago. So having that whole, let me just get a whole bunch of food, regardless every time, is not really necessary. I kind of buy what I need for the family, for the household, and just more aware, you know. And I think for me, even getting better at, like, I like to cook in advance. I've been doing that for years. So I'll prepare meals for the week. And I think that also kind of puts you in mind with what your grocery bill needs to be, what it looks like. I find that it gets harder, and this is just from even when I talk to people, when you're trying to cook like on the spot, and all of a sudden I got to run to get this, I got to run to get that, you're spending more. So really trying to plot out your meal plans, and I do that for health reasons, and also, again, it helps you to save money. And I kind of have to get a little bit better back in doing that, because I used to have it mapped out for the month, believe it or not, right, of what that's going to look like. But that drives my decision making when I'm going to the supermarket. It leaves me more flexibility when I see a sale to get it, not just I'm trying to stockpile it because I'm going to think it's going to run out, but again, just to think like, okay, this is on sale now. Either have I seen it better somewhere else, right? Because that's the other tip. Just because it's on sale doesn't mean it's going to be the best price, or can I wait? Or now that I'm back going to the wholesale places like a BJ's or what have you, I can do it better here.
Right.
Going back to the bacon example, bacon may be on sale. And I think I used to use a delivery service. I won't say the name because I don't want to disparage anybody, but I used to use a delivery service, and they had a pretty decent sale on bacon, I thought. But then when I saw the wholesale, I was like, wait a minute, this is 3 packs for what? So I'm not using them anymore. Going back to the delivery services, which of course were very popular for the pandemic, I think not just as convenience, but for those people that may have felt a little bit uncomfortable about going into stores. And it kind of spilt over a little bit. I kind of still use it, and I feel like something that happened recently kind of put me back in a mindset, like I really didn't need to do this order over online. I could go back to the store and do it. Is because that particular outlet raised their delivery prices, and you have to spend a certain amount to get it free. You're not going to cause me to spend more just to get a free service. I can go to the grocery store now myself, and that's what I'm doing. So I cut that out. And I noticed whereby the prices were, even during the pandemic with that online service, were very good and a lot of times cheaper. They've also caught up with inflation. I noticed that because my bill I had to make my bill smaller, because I'm like, wait a minute, this went up. I'm not going to pay that now. I think that's why the company in turn said we noticed that people aren't spending as much. So it's almost like we're going to force your hand. I don't know the logic in that, but they've lost me. I'm not doing that anymore. But I do definitely use wholesale. I've always loved Targets. If I had a Walmart near me, I would do that too. I'm not ashamed of where I shop where the sale is and where I trust the quality. That's really all it is to me. I find for me, the bigger chains that I know have kind of let me down, and maybe that's the wrong way to put it, but their prices aren't what they were. And, I've had to adjust. That's the best I can say. But again, not to, depending on who's listening, I know that's not everybody's situation. You may not be able to get out of your neighborhood. But I encourage you, if if you're going out of your neighborhood to go to school or to work, it's worth taking that second glance just to compare, right? If anything else, to compare prices. Because again, your neighborhood closest store may not have your best interest in terms of prices. I think that's the biggest takeaway. So if you have a Target, almost everybody, I think if you're commuting, there's always a Target. It seems to be near a transportation hub. I think it's worth it to look in there. I'm not sure where Trader Joe's is outside of the city, but just one other important tip I was very surprised to find, Yolanda. I hadn't been to Trader Joe's, I would say, the whole pandemic. So let's say maybe the first time last year, their prices haven't changed.
Ooh.
Their prices have not changed. So in other words, if you were used to paying Trader Joe's prices and you liked those prices before 2020, they are pretty much close to that. And I thought that said a lot. So again, I don't get everything from there. I never did. Never explored doing that, but some of the things that I used to get that I went back, I was very happy to see, like, wow, okay, this is interesting, So it just depends. I don't know about Whole Foods. I don't really shop there too much, but a lot of those old staples, some of them are changing, some of them haven't. But I think if you make it more diverse the way you shop, instead of sticking to that one thing, I think you'll find that you could chip some of the things off of, at least when it comes to groceries, right? You could sort of be more strategic. And your coupons. Trust the coupons. Like I said, I'm not the best at using that, but they are there. Use your coupons. Use your hacks. They could definitely help.
I agree. Yeah. Like one of the examples I was going to give, I think you mentioned it. Like you really have to be strategic, and think outside of the box as to if you used to go to one particular area, now to reconsider, like, okay, well, let me go on over here, and see what they got,
Right.
But as we get to wrap up, let's talk about some possible tips, even though we did give a few, to try and ease the stress of getting a control of this uncontrollable situation. So, part of Recession Hacks 101, calculate essential monthly expenses, writing it down. Okay, sometimes we shop with things in our head. Oh, I have to get this, I have to get that. Maybe have be conscious of putting it on paper and to see, do I need those dipsy doodles, or should I be getting this pack of apples over here that may last me a week and a half, depending if you're eating one a day or what have you, or cut it in half, however you want to do it, versus the dipsy doodles that, oh, let me watch this movie over here, and you eat the whole bag. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because we're beyond the days of a bag of dipsy doodles costing you. I'm talking about the big bag, not the 25 cents, which is not even 25 cents anymore.
It's not? Was it 35 probably? I think that happened before.
35. Girl, I think it's 50, 75 now.
I feel like that
For
happened
those who don't know, we're talking like a New York frame of mind. Like when you
I think
can
that
go
happened
to the
a while
store.
ago.
Yeah, and get like a 25-cent bag. Like that, that's not
gone.
happening anymore. That's over. So writing it down, and possibly food recession fund. And what I mean by that is, if you have, what is that, discretionary funds? Melvin, I hope I'm using the right term.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like stuff you can put aside.
Exactly. And let's say you have $200 for the week. $200 for the week. Okay. And you've kind of allotted your money to whatever bills or whatever, things that you have to do. But let's say you have $20 left, because we're at this point now, we're really speaking about shopping paycheck to paycheck, unfortunately. So if you have a few dollars left over, maybe not put all of that into your food fund, but maybe, okay, let me put this $10 here. And if you are living paycheck to paycheck, now you can have $50 to go towards, okay, this is going to be my grocery shopping thing at the end of the month, or what have you, depending on how much you want to put towards that. So versus, I only got $10. What can I go into the store with $10? That way you have something where it's like a beefier shopping experience, and again, you shop by a sale, And then another tip is to have a food plan, which we kind of spoke about before. That's within your means, because as Melvina mentioned, some of us, okay, maybe we don't have a food stand, a vegetable stand where you can go get fresh vegetables or what have you. Maybe that's a distance for you to do that. Maybe depending on where you live, maybe a Walmart is the only place where you can get vegetables or what have you. So just have a plan as to, okay, what do you want to eat within that week? What items do you have in your home that can accommodate what it is that you're trying to do? Do you already have those ingredients? If you now purchase these ingredients, will it be enough for 2 weeks versus that 1 week? Just to really take a deep dive as to figure this out, And then lastly, rethinking your diet, Maybe you want to do the vegan thing. If the meat, in these grocery stores are too crazy, maybe you want to rethink, all this pork that you're eating and this beef and chicken. You know what I'm saying? Like, because when you think about it, all the prices have risen. So even the pork, from what I'm seeing, they're all like affected. And even the seafood, we ain't gonna get started with that. But
and I think also, just to quickly jump in there, if you're working, going out of your house and you're spending money for lunch or spending out to eat, think of the price of that as well, because most likely the restaurants are definitely passing over because they're not immune, right, to the cost of food that's rising. They're going to pass over those costs to you, and I feel like it go either way. Like, definitely a lot of the fast food places are trying to offer those things to entice you to come in, but we know the toll that will take on you. So sometimes it's weird in this market, depending on where you're going to, it may actually be cheaper to eat fast food, unfortunately, than to eat healthy. But with that said, it can also be a trick. $1 every day is now adding up. And going back to that discretionary fund you mentioned, Yolanda, you're taking from that discretionary fund to put food into your body every day that's not necessarily going to be healthy. So you're not really saving money. I say that. That's that kind of like a psychological way of thinking. When you get those, a lot of these places have apps now, so they send you these deals. When you see it, oh, because it's a coupon, I get a free extra fries, I'm going to spend this. What are you spending to get that free extra fries?
Just to piggyback off of that briefly, it's all a domino effect, okay, in terms of the last point about rethinking your diet, because if you're eating things that are not healthy, now this opens up room for health issues, okay? If you're not getting your fiber, okay, if you're getting too much carbs, all of these, okay, high blood pressure, it's all of these things kind of now it's a doctor bill, okay? If you were already struggling with your food bill, now you're in the doctor's office more than you really need to be. So it really is a domino effect of, okay, this is what's happening in the world, okay? How do I fix it for my family? How do I fix it for myself? To redefine what's happening, the world, everything is, all over the place. But how do I still have some type of consciousness as to being healthy and eating healthy in this scenario? You know what I'm saying? So that's really important. But this was a very good conversation, Melvina.
Yeah,
And
go on
I
and
hope,
on, right?
exactly. I hope our listeners were able to, get a few ideas, maybe you have your own ideas and so forth, and, all of that good stuff. But this edition of Black Women Bank, we really appreciate your listening ears. If you have any questions for me or Melvina, or would like us to touch on some other financial and business topics, and would like to pitch or advertise your business, please contact info@pitchpact.com. Our Instagram page is @pitchpact. And until next time, thank you.
Bye.